Video Phantom! Scary stories!
Before we begin, please make sure you visit our Video Phantoms website every day and check out all of the new content and cool stuff we have for you over there. Also make sure you subscribe to the channel so you won't miss whenever we upload next. With that being said, let's grab your popcorn and enjoy the video.
You're watching our scary story called The Creepy Man Who Watched Us Every Night, a horror story. Moving into a new home should be a fresh start. For the Jackson family, it was supposed to be just that. Nestled in a quiet suburb, the house had everything they could have wanted. A spacious yard for their 2 children, a peaceful neighborhood, and a beautiful old oak tree that provided shade during the summer. Life seemed perfect until they met the man next door. From the moment they first arrived, Mr. Harlan, the neighbor, was there. He appeared almost as if by magic, emerging from his home the second their moving truck pulled into the driveway. He was an older man, perhaps in his late 60s, with a thin, wiry frame and deep-set eyes that never seemed to blink. His skin was pale, almost sickly, with deep lines etched across his face, and his thin lips were perpetually twisted into a half-smile that made Sarah Jackson uneasy from the start. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Mr. Harlan had said with an eerie enthusiasm. "It's been a while since we've had new faces around here." Sarah tried to shake the uneasy feeling that settled over her as Mr. Harlan's eyes flitted over her husband, Tom, and their 2 children, Emily and Ben. His gaze lingered a little too long on Emily, who clutched her mother's hand tightly. "Thank you," Tom said politely, though even he seemed slightly put off by the man's intense stare. "We're excited to be here." As the days turned into weeks, the Jacksons began to settle into their new life. The neighborhood was indeed quiet, and their home was everything they had hoped for. But there was one thing that they couldn't quite get used to: Mr. Harlan. He was always there, lurking just on the edge of their property, watching. No matter what time of day it was, if they were outside, Mr. Harlan would be too. He never spoke much, just watched with that unsettling half-smile on his face. Sarah tried to be polite, waving or offering a brief greeting, but his presence unnerved her more and more each day. One evening after dinner, Tom decided to confront Mr. Harlan. The man had been standing on his front porch, staring directly at their house for nearly an hour, and it was beginning to make the whole family uncomfortable. "Mr. Harlan," Tom called out as he approached the man's house. "Is everything okay?" Mr. Harlan slowly turned his head to face Tom, his expression unreadable in the dim light of the evening. "Everything's just fine," he replied in a tone that sent chills down Tom's spine. "Just fine." Tom hesitated for a moment, trying to find the right words. "It's just that, we've noticed you seem to be outside a lot watching our house. I'm sure you don't mean anything by it, but it's making my wife and kids a bit uncomfortable." Mr. Harlan's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just looking out for you all. This neighborhood isn't what it used to be. Gotta keep an eye out, you know?" Tom nodded slowly, though he wasn't entirely convinced. "We appreciate that, but maybe you could, give us a bit of privacy?" Mr. Harlan's smile faded slightly, and for a brief moment, a flicker of something dark passed over his face. "Of course," he said, though the words felt hollow. "I'll be more careful." But he wasn't. If anything, Mr. Harlan's behavior only grew more unsettling. He began appearing at all hours, sometimes in the middle of the night, standing in his yard, staring at the Jacksons' house. On several occasions, Sarah thought she saw him in their backyard, but when Tom went to check, there was no sign of him. It wasn't long before Emily and Ben started to express their fears as well. "Mom," Emily whispered one night as Sarah tucked her into bed, "I saw Mr. Harlan outside my window last night. He was just standing there looking at me." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "Are you sure, sweetheart? Maybe it was just a shadow." Emily shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. "No, it was him. I know it was." Sarah tried to reassure her daughter, but the truth was she was scared too. She told Tom about Emily's claim, and though he tried to brush it off as a child's imagination, Sarah could see the concern in his eyes. That night, Sarah barely slept, her ears attuned to every creak and groan of the old house. Around midnight, she thought she heard a soft rustling sound coming from outside. Holding her breath, she slowly got out of bed and crept to the window. What she saw made her blood run cold. There, standing at the edge of their yard, was Mr. Harlan. His eyes were fixed on Emily's bedroom window, and his mouth was moving as if he were speaking, though no sound came out. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth to stifle a gasp as she backed away from the window. She hurried back to bed and shook Tom awake. "Tom, he's out there again. He's watching Emily's room." Tom bolted upright, the sleep immediately gone from his eyes. He grabbed a flashlight from the nightstand and rushed downstairs, Sarah following close behind. When they reached the front door, Tom flung it open and shone the light across the yard. But Mr. Harlan was gone. Tom searched the perimeter of the house, but there was no sign of the old man. Maybe he went back inside, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Sarah didn't sleep at all that night, and when the sun finally rose, she made a decision. "We need to do something about him," she told Tom over breakfast. "He's getting worse and I'm scared for the kids." Tom agreed. He decided to talk to some of the other neighbors, hoping to get a sense of whether Mr. Harlan had ever exhibited this kind of behavior before. He started with the Johnsons, who lived across the street. Mrs. Johnson was a kind woman in her 50s, and she had always been friendly whenever they passed by. "Mr. Harlan?" Mrs. Johnson asked, her brow furrowing in concern. "Oh, that poor man. He's had a rough time these past few years." "What do you mean?" Tom asked, trying to keep his tone casual. Mrs. Johnson sighed. "His wife passed away about 5 years ago. They were married for over 40 years and her death really took a toll on him. He hasn't been the same since. He used to be so lively, always working in his garden or chatting with the neighbors. But after she died he became, well, a bit of a recluse." Tom nodded, feeling a pang of sympathy for the old man, but it didn't explain his recent behavior. "Has he ever acted strangely toward anyone? Like watching their house or standing outside at night?" Mrs. Johnson looked surprised. "Oh no, I've never heard of him doing anything like that. He keeps to himself mostly." "Why do you ask?" Tom hesitated, not wanting to alarm her. "Just curious. He's been a bit odd with us, that's all." Mrs. Johnson shook her head. "I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe he's just lonely. I try to be patient with him, though I understand it must be difficult." Tom thanked her for her time and headed back home, but the conversation left him with more questions than answers. If Mr. Harlan was simply lonely, why was his behavior so unsettling? That night, the Jacksons locked all the doors and windows, but it did little to ease their minds. Sarah had started keeping a baseball bat by the bed, and Tom had begun to wonder if they should install security cameras. But before they could make any decisions, something happened that forced their hand. It was around 2 a.m. when they were all jolted awake by the sound of shattering glass. Tom grabbed the flashlight and the baseball bat while Sarah rushed to the children's rooms. They were both safe, though Emily was crying in fear. "Stay here," Tom told Sarah. "I'm going to check downstairs." He descended the stairs as quietly as he could, his heart pounding in his chest. When he reached the living room, he saw the source of the noise. The large front window had been smashed and cold air was pouring into the house. But that wasn't all. Standing in the middle of the living room, surrounded by shards of glass, was Mr. Harlan. Tom's blood ran cold as the flashlight beam fell on the old man. Mr. Harlan was holding something in his hand, something dark and dripping. As Tom stepped closer, he realized with horror what it was. A dead bird. Mr. Harlan looked up at Tom, his eyes wide and wild. "I had to," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I had to protect you." Tom tightened his grip on the bat. "Protect us from what?" he demanded, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "The darkness," Mr. Harlan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's coming. It's already here in your house. I had to stop it." Tom felt a wave of anger and fear crash over him. "Get out of my house," he said through gritted teeth. "Now." Mr. Harlan didn't move. "You don't understand," he insisted. "It's in the walls, in the air. It's watching you, waiting for the right moment. I'm the only one who can see it." Tom raised the bat. "I said get out." Finally, Mr. Harlan seemed to realize the seriousness of the situation. He dropped the bird and backed away, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "I'm only trying to help," he muttered as he slowly made his way to the broken window. "I'm the only one who can help." Tom followed him to the window, making sure he left the house. Once Mr. Harlan was outside, Tom quickly closed and locked the door, his heart still racing. When he returned to the living room, he saw the bird lying on the floor, its lifeless eyes staring up at him. The sight made his stomach turn, and he quickly went to find something to clean it up with. By the time he returned to the bedroom, Sarah was on the phone with the police. They arrived within minutes, taking statements from both Tom and Sarah while another officer went to check on Mr. Harlan. When the officer returned, he looked troubled. "We spoke with Mr. Harlan," he said. "He claims he was trying to protect your family from some kind of evil spirit. He's clearly not well. Is he going to be arrested?" Tom asked, though part of him felt a pang of guilt for the old man. The officer shook his head. "Given his mental state and the fact that he didn't harm anyone, we're going to take him in for a psychiatric evaluation. If it's determined that he's a danger to himself or others, he'll be held for treatment." Tom and Sarah both nodded, relieved that Mr. Harlan would no longer be a threat, but also feeling a sense of sadness for the man who had clearly lost his grip on reality. The next day, the Jacksons had their front window repaired, but the damage to their sense of safety couldn't be so easily fixed. They installed security cameras, changed the locks, and made sure to keep the house secure at all times. For a while, things seemed to return to normal. The kids began to sleep better, and Sarah and Tom felt a little less on edge. But the memory of that night lingered, and every now and then, they would catch themselves glancing over at Mr. Harlan's empty house, wondering what had driven him to such madness. Then one night, months after the incident, something strange happened. As Sarah was putting the children to bed, she noticed a strange noise coming from the walls. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but there it was, a soft, whispering sound like the murmur of distant voices. She tried to brush it off, telling herself it was just the house settling, but the sound persisted. And as the days passed, it grew louder, more distinct. It was as if something was trying to communicate, to make itself known. One night, as Tom and Sarah lay in bed, they both heard it clearly. A low, guttural voice, speaking words they couldn't understand, coming from deep within the walls. Tom's blood ran cold. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "What is it?" Tom didn't know. But as he listened to the voices, he couldn't help but think of Mr. Harlan's warning. The darkness, he had said. It's in the walls, in the air. Just watching you. For the first time, Tom wondered if the old man had been right. And as the voices grew louder, more insistent, Tom and Sarah realized with growing dread that their nightmare was far from over.
Hey, what's up, guys? This your boy Quan318. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me to grow. And guys, if you really enjoyed the video, please give it a share on social media, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you guys be hanging out at the most. It really helps, and I appreciate it, guys. Also, my goal is to reach at least 1 million loyal subscribers over the next 5 years. Guys, I'm going to give it everything I got and go hard as I can. Hopefully it pays off for me, guys. And y'all going to be a big part of that. And as I grow, you guys will be rewarded for a lot of stuff for helping me participating. And as just a token of my appreciation, guys, the least I can do. Also, guys, make sure you go down in the video description and click the links. Visit all my websites. I done put hella work into these websites, man. Getting them built up, jam-packed with content just for you guys. You know, we got videos, we got the hottest trending offers online. I'm talking about everything, guys. Everything from education, teaching you how to make $1,000 a day online. Like, man, guys, everything that you can think of is on there. So, guys, make sure you go over there, check it out. Click links, watch videos, do your thing, man. I really want you guys to enjoy. I worked hard on it, and I want you guys to really enjoy it, man. So, yeah. Also, guys, while you're down there in the description, make sure you go and check out my other channels. I got links to all of them down below. I worked hard on these channels, guys. I worked hard on my websites. I worked hard on everything for you guys. Make sure you join my Facebook groups. I got Facebook groups set up for every channel that I got, guys. I'm trying to go global, man. You feel me? It's the family, man. This Rich Founders, man. I want y'all to be part of Rich Founders. Y'all part of the family, man. This a mafia, you feel me? Going worldwide with this shit. But anyway, man, love you guys. Y'all be blessed, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.